Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we tonight have Jeff Engholm with us. Welcome.
I am very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we're super excited to talk to you because you've got some exciting things coming up. You've got a new album coming up and you've got new shows, but I guess I'll just even take a step back and say, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got a history playing with a number of different bands and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing mostly around the St. Cloud area, and that's kind of where I base out of anyway for the past 20 years. I've been playing, I have my own group called Collective Unconscious, which has just been playing around for quite some time, which actually was formed to support my first solo album, which was 21 years ago. I played with the George Mauer Jazz Group around town at the Dakota and some other things, and played with the Fabulous Armadillos. I was just out at the Chanhassen this past weekend playing in their Vietnam show, and played with Pamela McNeil in a couple of different things, and Mary Jane Ulm, and just a bunch of that crew. So just been playing music for a long time around here in various ways.
Nice. Well, it's kind of fun to have an album that's just become an adult, and now you get a new baby coming up.
Indeed. That's a good way to think about it. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and we've gotten a little sneak preview of the album. It's tell us about it. I enjoyed it very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a conglomeration of a lot of. Some of the songs on there are almost 20 years old. But the majority of them are much more recent than that. But a couple of them, for instance, like there's a song called Gathering for Winter, which I wrote that was actually written for 9/11.
Wow.
That long ago. So it never really saw the light of day. It never went anywhere beyond, on my little demo tape. And, it finally, and it, especially in the pandemic and stuff like that, it just seemed appropriate to bring it out again. So, and other tunes have just been floating around my head in partial pieces over the years, and they just keep floating to the top, and I got to do something with that. And I just decided that now was the time. I had my my son is out of high school now, and so I've got a few years under my belt, and just decided it was time to put something out there again. It's been way too long. The last album that I've released was with a group, and that was in 2005. So it's just been far too long since I've done anything creative that was just for me. Nice.
Well, and it seems that there are some themes in the album, some of loss and some of, I don't know, recovering from loss or coming through things.
Yeah, I lost my mom this past summer.
I'm sorry to hear that.
In July, pretty unexpectedly. She ended up, she had hip surgery, and then she very quickly diminished. She went into the hospital again, and she had the surgery in March. She was recovering fine. Then she went in with an infection at the end of May, and then by the middle of June or July, she was gone. So it was just like, boom. So that, that was a big part of this as well. The part of the push to get this out. I guess maybe it was me kind of part of my process of dealing with it, and especially the song "Little Big Things" itself is there's a whole middle section that's really specifically about her.
That's well, and I'm very sorry for your loss. Obviously, the Little Big Things. It's funny because I see my dad most days. We go walking or things
Sure.
like and so I was listening to this kind of before I went for walks and went after. But what was the line about to see how we've grown? Just look around to see where we've grown. There was something I thought this must be about a parent or so,
Yeah.
or about looking at your own son. Once you're on both sides of it, it's an unusual perspective.
there's some of that as well. Yeah, kind of being in the middle of. You're exactly right.
Yeah, you lived what I become. That's what it.
Yeah, that's for mom. Yep. And that's it, like, you know, she used to, you know, it's kind of cliche to say, I almost cut that line because it's so cliche, but like, don't sweat the small stuff. But she used to say that all the time. And, you know, learn to play the game. That was another one of her little catchphrases. And so, yeah, she was, you know, a huge influence on me and kind of a spitting image of her. So yeah, it was a big loss for sure.
I like that line very much. You lived what I become, you know, and I think that and my youngest is in high school right now. I think, you know, it's when you start hearing yourself saying things that someone said to you. They're like, oh
Yes.
man, did I just say that out loud?
It does sneak in there, doesn't it? It's amazing. Yeah. The things we swore we'd never say, the things we swore we'd never do. And,
yeah, right. Or we'd never stop doing, or you can make the list.
Right.
Now, how much of this album was she able to hear? Had she heard most of these songs? It sounds like Little Big Things maybe was written after.
Actually, Little Big Things came after. I mean, most of the new stuff came afterward. I had probably played. She maybe heard a few tunes off of it, some of the older ones, especially like Gathering for Winter. I know she liked that song, and I played it for her a few times on the guitar or whatever. She always liked that. So, yeah, but it kind of mostly happened after she was gone. So, because I was actually in the middle of grad school at the time too, so that was kind of all going on all at the same time. So I really like to pile it on, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the middle of grad school, during the middle of a pandemic and all of this, yeah. That's a heck of a summer.
I don't do anything small, I guess.
No.
Little Big Things.
Yeah, exactly. Big little things, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
How about your song Flipped? I'm thinking that one's older, maybe.
Yes,
I got that. Sweet, because I was like, it feels like long hair, rock and roll, a little bit infused
in there. Quite a bit younger when I wrote that song. Yes, it's a true story though. It's actually my friend and I. We were in 5th grade and we had heard this story about this kid who dug a hole to China, and so of course. We went home and proceeded to do that. Well, we ended up inches. We found out later. We had dug down a little ways, and of course, we were in 5th grade, so we quickly got bored and went on to do other things. Well, when his dad came home, he told us that you boys came within a few inches of a big power line, and so that's
oh jeez.
That's what the song is about. That what if we had stuck that spade in just another. And so then the song goes on to say, well, that all of the memories of my entire life were zapped into that one moment of striking that wire, and then it kind of brings in another childhood friend of mine who used to go around. He used to like to say, well, you're all just figments of my imagination, and, you know, waxing philosophical like that. So that kind of worked its way into the whole thing as well. So yeah, that's a fun tune.
Oh,
that's why I got my good friend Paul Engholm to do the guitar solo on it. I just told him, just do all the things you've always ever wanted to do in a guitar solo but couldn't, and he did pretty much exactly that. So
that's so great. I can't imagine being that parent coming home to that. That just kind of makes me cringe a little bit.
Pile of dirt behind the garage. Yeah.
Oh. Even your song Startup Man, I'm thinking I hear a flute mixed in with this kind of rocking beat. That's so, like, I don't know that I've heard that, and it's so cool. Obviously you know a lot of music, and I know you play a lot of instruments, but I want to hear the thought process.
How that happened. Well, it's kind of funny because on my first solo album, which was called Summit Climb, which was out a billion years ago. I was pretty new to town, pretty new to St. Cloud at that time, and I was asking around to the few people that I knew, like, who's a sax player in town? And they all said, oh, this guy named Al Osmus, and who used to work for a place called Al's Music, and now he has his own music store. And so I called him up and just said, hey, I'm recording this album. Do you want to come and record it? And unfortunately, I live 45 miles north of town. He's just like, yeah, I'll be there Saturday, you know. And he drove up and just played on the tune, and beautiful tenor sax. And then he switched to a alto sax and brilliant solo, and then he just left. And so I thought, well, it'd be cool to have him back on my next solo album. But then he said he got COVID really, really bad over the winter. And so he said he couldn't really play tenor. And he said, well, is it okay if I play flute on it? Because I wanted him to play tenor. And because I had always imagined a tenor solo. And so then I was like, well, I guess let's try it. I mean, if I don't like it, I'll just call somebody else, you know, I don't know. And he showed up, and we did the thing, and it ended up being super cool. I mean, he's a super jazz cat, you know, and he plays by, you know, it's like, well, here are the changes. He's like, I don't need that. You know, he just plays by ear and is all very, you know, like, well, I want to get in the vibe, man. And he's one of these guys, you know. And so, yeah, and, you know, it was a little editing and a little bit of, you know, kind of overdrive on the thing and putting it through a guitar amp and doing some special little magic tricks to it. And it actually, then it became inspired by, I'm a regular listener to public radio, and the CBC always has their news as it happens at 10 o'clock at night on public radio, and their theme song has this kind of rockin' flute in it. And that was I tried to kind of emulate that sound when I did it, because I thought, well, because it's back from the 70s or something, and it's just a super cool tune. I can't think of the name of it right now, but anyway, that's kind of where that all came from. And I'm actually gonna send the track to those guys at As It Happens on CBC, just to say, hey, you inspired some of this there, you know. So we'll see what happens with that. But
Just tell him you're in Canada South.
yeah. Yeah, the other province, right?
Yeah.
Southern,
Maybe you can work a
southern
deal for us, but I listen to that often. You could. Stranger things had happened, then they might pick up that story, because
Hey, you know,
they have a lot of just great stories about, you know,
right.
the lost postcard that they found the owner from, you know.
Right. And the Startup Man theme kind of has you could kind of twist that in any news story that's coming out. So I don't know, who knows? That's just for fun. So
that's great. It is fun how you have different, you have a larger box of crayons than a lot of musicians in terms of being able to so many different instruments.
yeah, I do like to play, and I mean, I'm a band director by day as well, and an orchestra director. So, you know, I that's one of my things has always been, I've been able to learn instruments very quickly, and so I always like to play my own stuff as much as I can, but but you know, I leave things like the drums to the pros, and if I have a guitar solo, I mean, I can't play guitar like that, like Paul Deedham does, or my friend Muggsy. So there's certain things that I pass off, but I mean, a lot of the solos on here I played, and did all most of the keyboards and all the supporting instruments and all the vocals except for one track. So yeah, it's just something I enjoy doing. I've always, when I first came to town, like I was saying, I just bought myself this 16-track reel-to-reel recorder and just started recording myself and just layering, and I just love that. I love that process. I'm a big fan of the process of recording and using the multi-track to build ideas and create kind of soundscapes and just these sonic little worlds that and of course it's singing with yourself always creates a real a tightness to the harmony and the sound that is difficult to emulate with other people. So
Well, because you're an engineer and a musician, the experience of doing an album is probably not as different for you during COVID as it is for many of the musicians we've talked to.
Yeah, but I guess although the last several albums I did since the last solo album were all very much collaborative works, but I did a lot of the mixing and stuff and the engineering on my own in post. Yeah, it was not. It didn't feel weird to be here by myself working at all. It felt very comfortable. In fact, it was kind of refreshing in many ways to just have that total freedom. I mean, I love the guys I work with, and we do great things together. We collaborate really well. But there was something very refreshing and nice about having just there's nobody. It's kind of a catch-22 because there's nobody really to bounce ideas off either. But then, for instance, like my drummer Scott Chabot, when I got him involved, I just expected him to show up and play the drum tracks and then he goes home. But my phone kept ringing. He's just like, dude, you gotta try this on this. I had this idea. Can you try this? And here I made a little demo of this, and he actually ended up coming back and cutting some of the little bells, like the glockenspiel and stuff like that is on there. Like that was all his ideas, and and for some of the guitar solos and stuff I went outside, but yeah, so that was really helpful, and just to be able to construct and write and rewrite, and I work well in my own environment, I guess, to answer your question. So.
Oh, that's good. And I Bluefin Bay, the start of Bluefin Bay, I always think of it as being sounds like a rain stick.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Oh,
it totally is. Yeah, that was Scott too. That was one of the things that Scott brought in. So yeah, and he also played on my original solo album. So it's there's a lot of tying together for me personally.
Yeah.
So not that there's a bookend, because that would imply that this is the end, because I don't want it to be a bookend. I want it to be. But I'm gonna start filling the shelf now again.
It's just like a baby.
Yeah.
Did you purposely ask the musicians on the first album to this album too, or do you just?
Well, it just so happens. I mean, I'm still working with the same guys. I mean,
okay.
Like I said, Collective Unconscious was formed around promoting my first solo album. With no real intention of it becoming a band, and it did, and we still play, and we're still together and still working with. And now Scott had a long hiatus of not being our drummer. We went through a couple of drummers in between, and now he's back, and it's brilliant. It's fun to kind of reconnect with him after all these years, and just his enthusiasm and his ideas, and the guys, the collective guys were Muggsy and Nathan and George, were all very supportive of this whole project from the word go. In fact, we Zoomed together just the other night talking about the 15th, getting ready for the show, and they both just stopped and said, how supportive they are of this whole thing, and how they really enjoy the record, and they're excited to play the songs. And so it's a nice. It's a great energy and a great collaboration. It always has been. So
it's nice to have, almost like a music family. It's nice to have that.
Very much, yeah. I mean, I've known them my entire musical career. I mean, they were literally the first people that I met out of college when I came to town, and started making. I met them one after the other. It was like I was in a musical in my hometown, and this guy named George Maurer was hired as the music director. And so then, and he hired a guy named Muggsy as his guitar player. And then we formed a little band out of that to go around this singer that he was, and it just like, you know, one thing led to another, and we all, and it just stuck. It just stuck. And it, yeah, I think that really shows when we play. I mean, there's no substitution for that kind of intimate knowledge of how you know exactly what the guy's going to do, you know, in a good way. You know, they can still surprise you, but there's very little guesswork when I'm on stage with those guys. It just makes it very easy and a lot of fun.
Well, it feels like if you know them, then you're open to a surprise, but you're not going to get a shock. You know, like, what? You know, it's.
Yeah, what the hell are you doing?
What?
Yeah.
That was not in the script.
Yeah.
The rest of us are not taking our shirts off. Yeah, none of that sort of. Where are you going with that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that would have usually probably been me being that guy, but that's they would have been the shocked ones. But yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the show that is coming up on May 15th, since you mentioned it with the.
Yeah. Everybody that's in the show plays on the record. The fourth song, "Believe in Yourself," that actually features that was recorded as kind of the first, before this solo album kind of became a thing. It was actually recorded over a year ago, and I did that in studio with the whole band, and so that's got the whole collective on it. And so it's that crew. It's the Collective Unconscious band, and then I brought in Paul Engholm and who did the guitar solo, and then Mike Zeleny is going to play. Normally I'm the bass player in the group, and so I brought in, but for this show I kind of wanted to be up front and be on the acoustic, and so I brought in Mike Zeleny, who has worked with Paul for a million years. They've been in a band together forever called Slip Twister, and then now they're in the Fabulous Armadillos together. And so I brought him in as the bass player, and he just played for a radio show I did on KVSC in St. Cloud about a month ago, and he just said right then and there, he's just like, "This is great. If you know, let me know what else you got coming up. I'd love to play for you." So yeah, I'll take you up on that. I mean, he's amazing, and they're all amazing musicians. So yeah, so it's going to be us, and we're basically going to there will be a live audience, but it'll be limited, of course.
Okay.
So the focus will be more on the live stream, and we're doing multi-camera and all that stuff, of course, and so we're doing one set, not a super long show, just a 75 to 90 minute, just basically playing the record straight through, and then we'll do a couple things at the end. And we were even thinking about doing this thing where as the show goes on, the people who are watching online, even the people in the audience, will be able to do a little poll and find out who everybody's favorite song in the record is, and then do it again at the end.
That's a fun idea. Love that.
Super fun.
It's cool, yeah. So just to have a little fun with it, and yeah.
I hope that they choose "Believe in Yourself." A person could do worse than listen to that every morning.
You like that? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually is a funny story to that song, because originally that song was a really sad song. It was like a really depressing song, because if you listen to the characters in the story, they're really struggling. Like they're stuck in themselves, and yeah, it was originally called "The Sad Halloween" was the name of the song, and that and they actually never really made it out. They had on, and the last line was something about, you know, tears down your makeup and all this stuff, and I was just like, this is not how this is going. And I actually took, like, to kind of kick my own butt back into this whole thing, I took a songwriting class a couple of summers ago, just online, just a one day, more like a workshop. And it just, out of that and the work we did in that, I just had the idea. I thought, well, I'm going to go back to this and try and write a chorus. And then that's where the whole, you know, believe in yourself, that whole thing came out of that process. and then it kind of changed the whole tenor of the song. So then I kind of went back and reworked and found a new kind of arc to the story, so that I could give these poor people some hope. Because I'm a pretty positive person overall, and a lot of my songs over the years have been, kind of toward that bent, like I don't write depressing songs really, so it's I try to lift people up, I guess. And so it's it definitely, I would have never put it out in that previous form, but that's just kind of the way it came out. And so I was glad I was able to take that raw material and kind of reform it and reshape it into something that you could listen to in the morning.
Yeah. Because I didn't write it down the first time. Tell me the original name of the song again, because it's just awesome.
The Sad Halloween.
Sad Halloween.
Yeah, and actually I kept the word Halloween in the song, where you're going out for Halloween. That's like when they decide, okay, I'm gonna get dressed and get out of the house and go meet somebody, because it's about these two people that kind of sort of know each other, and they both have an interest in each other, but yet they're too shy or too inward or whatever that's where it orbits without gravity. That's where that line comes from. And so, yeah, I probably think way too much about this stuff. I don't know.
It's awesome. It makes me love this song even more.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I love the idea of taking a music writing class. I mean, I think, sometimes we don't think to take a class in our craft, whatever that might be. And
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I agree. And I mean, there was a time in my life when I would have, I wouldn't have been willing to do that, whether it be because of ego or just youth or whatever it is. I thought, I don't need that. I can write my own song, but I was just looking for ways to, I know enough now that those kind of things, they're not out there to change you. They're there to invigorate you and to show you new and different ways of because I had written lots of songs. I didn't need to learn how to write a song. What I was looking for was just a different take or a different scoop or a different way of looking at the process. So I could become a little, when you only write so many songs in 20 years, you feel like, oh God, if I ever do another album, it's going to take another 15, So just to kind of create a process around it so I can become more prolific again. And so it was really a good experience. And the guy that did it was cool. He was over in England, and it was all over, this. And he ended up staying on it went at least an hour and a half over what it was supposed to, because he was just so excited and so into it, and everybody was interacting. It was really cool. It was a great experience.
That's amazing. I'm in the tech field, so I take classes more often, but sometimes I think taking the class that you could teach yourself, you will learn more than taking a lot of other classes.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
You hear it at a different level, because you obviously teach too. As you
right.
said, you've written plenty of songs, and I'm sure you've taught plenty of,
Yeah, but I still go to convention, and I go to, I still take classes all the time, and or at least go to workshops and read articles and go get my master's degree. And
well, now that brings me to say, is your master's degree in musicology?
Music education. Yeah, that's my day job, I guess. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. No, and I was doing the master's a help or a hindrance in terms of doing. Because I have master's degree, so I know. It takes up a lot of your time.
Oh yeah, no, it was insane. I really had no business doing it. But it was like, well, there is no good time. So you either just decide to do it or you don't. And so I just thought, well, and one thing I think it did help is that it brought me back to the kind of work ethic that I needed. Like it really helped me to focus and organize, and just the energy of having to go home after school every day and have to focus on something else for several hours at a time, and just on a daily basis. And I literally started the album as that was finishing up. So it was, and even while it was finishing up. So I kind of purposefully carried that energy forward so that I would stay really productive and just stay focused. And because that's kind of part of what I wanted to go back to school for, was just to, you know, re-engage the brain and you know, write a paper again and have to sit down and organize my thoughts. And so it actually was essential to the process of getting this album put together.
There is that you can always make time for what you want to make time for. When you're working full time, when you're a student, you are reminded of that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in good ways and bad, because then even if you're the best student and the best worker, there are days where you're like, I'm going to Dairy Queen, man. It's just important too. You know, that's that balance,
Right.
you know, but it's, yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to get a third master's degree, but I know I'm so tempted.
I did enjoy it. It was a lot of work, and some of it was not always fun, but it was a good it's nice to do graduate work because you're actually doing what you're doing. It's not a bunch of random things in to fulfill requirements in a degree in a university or whatever. It's like, okay, you're here to study music education, and that is what we are studying, period. Like all the aspects of it and all the and I got to take another theory class, and I love music theory. I'm a kind of a geek about it, so it was just really fun to do that again and take that to the next level and get back and stuff that I hadn't thought about in 25 years since I'd been in school, so it definitely was a huge part of what made what carried the energy into creating Little Big Things.
Well, and presumably the music theory class that you took and other classes that you took informed the album. Are there any specific ways or tangible ways that you can think of? Like, I wouldn't have done this. I would have done.
Because of school, you mean?
Yep, because of the recent classes.
Oh man. Geez, that's an interesting question. I mean, I've always been into kind of non-traditional chord structures and kind of putting, well, you think this chord's going to come in right here, but whoop, it's going to do a little twisty turn on you. And I liked what my friend who he wrote, his name just flew out of my brain. It'll come back to me. But he wrote the thing for me, and he referred to non-Nashville chords that are in my songs, which I thought was kind of a cool way to put it. So there's that, and I think just my relationship with words kind of changed after doing all that writing and all that thinking about writing. And in that case, it was, not necessarily creative writing, but it was still writing nonetheless, which is really not that different of a process as far as organizing one's thoughts and being able to be concise and to just and really the ability and to go back and rework something. I was always afraid to do that when I was younger. It's just like, oh, I want it to be pure. I want it to be this. I want it to all fall out of me and Neil Young style. But it doesn't always work that way. And sometimes it does, and it's just like a gift. It falls from the heavens and falls in your lap. I mean, that's kind of how I Can't Look at You, the first track. That was that song on this record. I just sat down with the guitar one morning, and that song literally just went onto the table, and that was it. It pretty much is in the same form it was that day. I mean, with a few minor changes, but other songs got squished and turned around and reworked and rewritten and you know, like the Feel the Sting is an example of that, where I literally had a whole set of lyrics that I was in the recording process. I was, you know, recording vocals on it, and I just decided, you know what, this is not speaking to me. This is not. It feels generic. It feels not like me, and so I just went back to the drawing board and rewrote the tune, and played it for. I actually played it for Scott, my friend Scott, and so I was thinking about it. Feel the Sting was originally just its working title, and because it reminded me of a police tune, just the way that the guitar,
That's funny.
and that's, so I was like, Feel the Sting. That's kind of funny, you know, and just a way for me to keep track of it. And then for whatever reason, and then that song got kind of glommed onto by another completely different idea that had come from a different place at a different time. So then I slammed those two ideas together, and then I thought, well, Feel the Sting, where can we go with this? What is Feel the, and then it occurred to me, well, I thought, and this is, I'm really going to geek out on you now here, but I thought, well, the Hobbits had a sword named Sting. And this is going to be really weird, but I actually wrote that tune. The lyrics that exist now, if you go back and look at them,
Yeah.
they're actually about the Shelob the spider from the Lord of the Rings. They're from her perspective. They're about her, but it works because it's like it's veiled enough where it can be just about anybody or anything. But that's when I got that idea and I kind of wrote with that in mind. Then it all just kind of laid out, and that felt, it was way more fun and way more dramatic, and I was able to use these kind of dark words, and that was a fun writing experience, actually, because I kind of put myself out of myself and wrote about something without writing about it. Like, I didn't want anybody to be able to just listen to the song and think, oh, this is just a fanboy song, you know. It's not that, but it's and I don't think it is that, but that it's just funny that kind of inspiration kind of entered into the whole thing. I don't know. That's part of that process that I like so much, that I just love that, how that things work out sometimes. So
I just love that story.
okay.
Now I might have to read Lord of the Rings.
I'm keeping
I was
you
gonna
very
say,
busy. You're
right.
at school, you're reading novels.
Yeah. I may have read one of them when I was a kid, but it's been a long time. I don't.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say, I just listened to a podcast today, and Stephen Colbert was on there, and he is a Lord of the Rings fanatic and has... Okay, so you know this. I was going to say, you should send your song to him and see if he can find it.
I'll play on Colbert, sure.
Yeah. Seriously.
Anytime.
Seriously. I would. He has the sword and everything. So I was like, wow.
Yeah. He's uber. Yeah, he's yeah.
But I like how you're saying that you mishmash a whole bunch of different things, because I did, for writing songs, I didn't know if, most people have like a certain moment or emotion, whatever they're trying to convey to all of us. So I kind of like the twisted, non-Nashville lyrics too, or whatever, way of thinking, because it's just like, sort of like art. It's all how you see it, especially if you're twisting all these things,
Right.
You can't always figure it out.
Exactly. And it made it fun because you sit down and you think, well, I'm going to write a song about relationships, it's like, or whatever. And it's, well, okay, where do you start with that?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that particular exercise just gave me something extremely specific to focus on, which is, and that's something that I took out of that songwriting class too, which I didn't really think about at the time, but now I'm right here in front of your eyes and kind of putting two and two together. That maybe that's where that idea came from, just to give it some focus and yeah. So it made it fun. It was all of a sudden it was fun because I thought, oh, I'm never going to use these. That was the other part. I didn't think that would be it, but I thought, well, I have this idea. I might as well go through with it and just write it out. And that's what I played for Scott. And he's just like, I love this. This is so much better. So I thought, well, okay, there it is. I'll just leave that alone. So sometimes you don't question. You just
Yeah, one of the weird things I learned about Prince is apparently if he started something, he finished it, and it may stay in that vault forever.
right.
You know, said some of it was just not good.
Oh yeah, I'm sure not. You know,
But if you were going to do it, take it through, because you never knew, you know, what chorus, what turn of phrase might come back to you in a new.
right. And that's often what happened. That many of these songs are two completely different ideas, or sometimes even three, that are then brought together and melded together, either as different parts of the songs or a way to alter. Yeah, there might be a turn of phrase or whatever it happens to be. But I always think of it like, well, Prince is he was like a photographer, right? Like a professional photographer. The difference between an amateur and a professional photographer is, you know, the amateur takes 6 pictures and the pro takes 600 and takes the best 6.
Yeah.
You know, and that, so I think that was maybe kind of Prince's approach, is just keep cranking them out. Just
Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Let it flow. And that's a big thing too in your songwriting is finding that space where the ideas can come. And one of the things that, you know, in all the reading I've done about songwriting and everything else is just write everything down, keep it flowing, keep it moving. Just even if it's the dumbest thing, you know, have your little memo recorder right there. And, you know, that's where a lot of these things got their start. So it just started as a little seed, or just a line or a few words, or like humming a melody, you know, and then it just grows from there.
Now, this is because you are a music teacher too, do you bring some of these into your classroom?
You know, I wish I did more of that. It's something that you know, I encourage my kids to be creative in their own way, but I don't do enough working with them because I'm so busy just trying to, you know, do what's required of the programs that I work in. You know, I mean, we have these, I run 3 groups and I've got 3 concerts to worry about and repertoire and other things. But, you know, I think for some of the students, they're very aware, they become aware of what I'm doing and they're very interested in it. And I think it comes into the kind of programming that I do at the school. And I did do some work actually last semester. Was part of my master's thesis was working with composition and working with that. And so I finally kind of broke because it's kind of terrifying too to nobody feels qualified to teach composition, right? Like how do I, you know, if somebody asked me, well, will you do a workshop on songwriting? I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. You know, I don't. Maybe I do. I don't know. But you know, it one of the things I was reading about teaching composition is just a lot of teachers are just scared to do it because they don't feel comfortable writing themselves. They don't know how to even begin. And so it was cool to actually just dive into it and just make some simple things for them to do. And without fail, they come up with way more cool stuff than you ever imagined they would. If you give them a little open canvas, some of them, you know, some students will do the least amount possible to finish whatever, and that's fine. There's always going to be those, but there's always those few on the other end who just take it and run. And there was some things like that came out of that experience, which was really, really, really cool and fun. And now that I'm done with my degree and I can kind of take all that stuff and reassess what I'm going to do for next year. I'm definitely planning on reintroducing that aspect into the composition. And I have worked with several students there on songwriting, mostly in the just facilitating, helping them to record their ideas. And sometimes they'll send me their little demos and stuff and just say, well, what do you think about this? And then I work with them that way. So that's definitely happened on several occasions as well.
It's going to be an amazing opportunity. You know, when a kid shares something with you like that, just
yeah, it really is. It's just exciting. That to me is really exciting to hear, because they're amazingly creative. And yeah, we had a gal who wrote all original music they did a Midsummer Night's Dream, and she wrote several songs for the production, and they were all just amazing little tunes, you know, they're just little snippets, you know, but just her sense, I mean, she's gonna go places. So it's fun. It's fun to work around that kind of energy, and they which is boundless, of course, at that age, and
for better, for worse.
right. Yeah. So.
Well, how interesting to just have music surround so much of you.
I consider myself very lucky in that aspect. That I get to gig, I get to, you know, I play tribute shows, so I get to just do some performing that's not kind of no pressure. It's not my music. I'm not putting myself out there. I just get to be a performer, and which has always been a love of mine. I mean, I've been in, you know, I love doing musicals. If I actually had time in my life to do, I mean, if I could do musicals all the time and just perform in them, but I just can't do that anymore. It's just way too much of a commitment of time, but but I love performing, and I love bringing that kind of energy to the stage and character to the stage. And so yeah, between that and the teaching and just being around, like you say, just being around music all day long in one form or another. And, you know, and teaching has its, you know, there's its kind of grosser aspects too, just the administrative side, and, you know, lovely things like grading and, you know, all the fun stuff. But, you know, it comes down to a couple hours a day. I get to stand up in front of a room full of students and work with them directly and make music with them. And I do not take that for granted. Not one bit.
Well, they're lucky. I mean, teaching is a calling. I shouldn't say this out loud. I've taught from preschool to graduate school. I have taught in different capacities. It's not for me.
Huh?
I'm not, there are times that I like it, but it's so I will tell you from somebody who's for another, it is a calling, and somebody who can do it is a gift to the teachers or to the students. You know, that's a gift to the students to be able to do that. There were things I liked, but at the end of the day, there were things that it's like, no.
Yeah.
It's not for.
No, and it's definitely not for everybody. I would agree with you there. And you know, you see people come and go, and you have to be. I think some people enter it and the kids kind of suck their energy out of them, you know, whereas I guess you have to be the kind of person where you get energized by that process. And I think everybody does to a certain degree, but it's, you know, you kind of have to thrive on it, and just, I mean, I enjoy it. I kind of went back into it kicking and screaming. I mean, I had been a freelance musician for 10 years before I went back into teaching, and I swore I would never do it again. And so I was literally kicking and screaming, going back into the business, but I was broke, and, you know, I got this kind of opportunity, really great school, and now I've been there 11 years. So
You beat Jack Black. I think he only made it one. I don't know why. Of course, I had to think of School of Rock, but you're talking about in that perspective.
Right. Well, and I've taught those too. We have a summer program called School of Rock that I've been part of for 16 years. So
wow,
it's a whole nother thing. So I guess from that aspect, I have done what you're talking about. You know, like working with people in that more of a popular music kind of rock and roll kind of setting. So
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, no wonder you have such a varied album.
It's a bit eclectic.
In a good way. I mean that I like it. I like that all of a sudden you hear a rain stick and you hear the jazzier song on When It Began,
Oh,
I love all that. That. That's great.
cool. Yeah. That's my trombone playing. I wanted to have, I like to have the trombone make an appearance on whatever it is I'm doing, just for whatever reason. And that was the tune. That tune eluded me. That was the last thing to come together.
Really?
And and it was another one that I really was not a fan of the lyrics. I thought they were too generic. And then there was some people close to me who were kind of going through something that because it's really about it's about relationships. But just the When It Began, it was just all right. Like everything was going great, and then all of a sudden things weren't going great, and now it's not. And so that's kind of how it's structured. And and I had somebody fairly close to me who was kind of going through that at the time and actually leaving a relationship, and it kind of spoke to them, and it spoke to they were close with my girlfriend, and so they and so that it all made sense. All of a sudden the lyrics didn't change necessarily, but they changed. My perspective to them changed. And so then all of a sudden it kind of made sense. And by just changing a few key tiny things in it, all of a sudden it kind of clicked and it worked. And then throwing the horns in was just, it's kind of one of those, it's got kind of that silly kind of Beatles-esque chunk to it, what am I thinking of? The Octopus's Garden kind of effect,
Oh, sure.
So I thought, well, we'll just throw a little trombone in there, see how it sounds, and it ended up sticking. So it was good.
It's fun. It's a fun album.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
So for folks who are listening, and I will include this in the notes, where can we find you online? Where can we find your music?
JeffEngholm.com. I've got a video teaser up there right now. I think so we're going to be putting out a video right around the time of the show for I Can't Look at You.
Okay.
You can preview the whole song I Can't Look at You on iTunes right now. And of course it goes live on all the streaming services on June 18th. JeffEngholm.com is probably the best place to look right now, because that has everything where you can go from there. So it has, you can preview all the tracks, like get little, 30-second snippets or whatever. And there's some pictures up there and other fun stuff. So
the promo video is engaging. So that's
cool.
Yeah. So we've got the album comes out, Little Big Things, on June 18th, and there's kind of a sneak peek show on May 15th, and that's
right.
online and off.
Yes, we're just calling it kind of a local, like if you're at the show, or you can order a CD kind of thing at that time. But
nice.
We're doing the big release on June.
Nice.
In June, but it'll be fun to see who shows up for that. And
Well, and you'll have to get back to us after the poll, see which is the favorite song.
Yeah, I'm very, very curious to see how that goes. It may or may not go the way I'm just going to go in expecting nothing, and we'll see what happens. But it is kind of a fun way to engage everybody, and maybe it'll make them listen just a little more intensely.
Yeah.
Everybody's taking notes.
That would sound like a true teacher right there. It's good that the
I'll need
teaching
your half
can
a
inform the
page.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That's amazing. Well, Jeff, we have enjoyed talking to you, and we'll look forward to the show on the 15th, and yeah, and then the album coming out on the 18th. So thank you very much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun talking about it, and you guys have great energy too. So it's fun to be a part of. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.